Back in the early 2000s, Sega was still trying to figure out what Sonic was supposed to be after the Dreamcast era. The adventure games had pushed the series into a bigger, more story-heavy direction, but not everyone loved that. So in 2003, Sonic Heroes came along as the first big multi-platform Sonic game, launching on PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. The idea sounded smart on paper: make Sonic simpler, make him more accessible, pull things back from the heavier adventure-style storytelling and focus more on speed, colorful levels, and straightforward action. What Sega ended up with was a game that's creative, fast, charming, and also a complete mess in some very important ways. So today, let's talk about Sonic Heroes and answer the question: is this game actually an underrated classic, or is it just a nostalgia trap? Sonic Heroes was released in 2003, and it was an important game for the series. This was Sonic stepping onto more platforms in a big way, especially for players on PlayStation 2 who hadn't gotten the mainline 3D Sonic games before. Coming off Sonic Adventure 2, Sega clearly wanted to shift gears. The adventure games had a lot of fans, but they also brought in more complicated plots, multiple gameplay styles, and a tone that sometimes drifted pretty far from what older Genesis fans wanted out of Sonic. With Heroes, the goal seems obvious: strip things back, keep the story lighter, focus on gameplay, make Sonic feel immediate again. And honestly, that sounds like the recipe for one of the best Sonic games ever made. The problem is, Sonic Heroes has the ideas, the execution is where things start falling apart. The main gimmick in Sonic Heroes is the team system. Instead of controlling just one character, you play as teams of 3, with each team built around the same core gameplay styles. You've got Team Sonic as the normal route, Team Dark as the harder route, Team Rose as the easier one, and Team Chaotix, which mixes things up by focusing more on missions. Across all 4 teams, the gameplay is built around 3 roles: speed, flight, and power. Speed characters are your main momentum-based characters. Flight characters help with platforming and recovery. Power characters break objects, fight heavier enemies, and deal with strength-based obstacles. And on paper, this is brilliant. It gives Sonic gameplay variety without completely abandoning the focus on speed and platforming. A good Sonic game, at least for me, needs to be reasonably fast, have some platforming challenge, include memorable set pieces, and make reaching the goal feel clear and satisfying. Broadly speaking, Sonic Heroes check all of those boxes. So this should be the perfect Sonic formula. About that. Because the real issue is how the game feels to control, Sonic Heroes can be slippery in all the wrong places. There are moments where the game expects precision, but the controls do not always feel precise enough to support that. A lot of sections, especially places where one bad movement sends you falling to your death, become way more frustrating than they should be. Metropolis is a good example of this, especially in those elevator-style segments where using the speed character can feel more dangerous than exciting. Then there's the camera, which is one of the game's biggest enemies. On some versions, especially PS2, it can be completely lose the plot. Sometimes it jerks upward, points at the sky, or starts spinning in a way that makes it harder to even see what you're doing. And in a game that already has slippery movement and bottomless pits everywhere, that is a horrible combination. Then there's the biggest structural issue in the whole game: repetition. To unlock the final story, you have to beat the game with all 4 teams. That means playing through the same stages over and over again, even if the difficulty or objectives change slightly. What starts off as fun and creative eventually turns into a test of patience. So yes, the gameplay in Sonic Heroes has a lot going for it. It's fast, colorful, and full of ideas. But it's also held back by controls, camera problems, and a structure that demands too much repetition for its own good. Now, to the part where Sonic Heroes really shines, the level design. At its best, this game absolutely gets Sonic. Seaside Hill is probably the best example. It's bright, colorful, full of energy, and instantly memorable. It feels like Sonic in level form. Speed, platforming, familiar Sonic-style set pieces, and a clear sense of forward momentum are all there. It's one of those stages that makes you understand exactly what Sega was going for with this game. Then you've got stages like Rail Canyon, which lean much harder into rail grinding. In Sonic Adventure 2, rail grinding felt like a cool part of the level design. In Sonic Heroes, it becomes a huge part of the level design itself. And from this point onward, rail grinding would become much more central to 3D Sonic. The problem is that it can be incredibly shaky here. Switching rails sounds fun until one wrong move sends you slipping off into nothing. Speed characters can feel unstable on rails, but honestly, even power characters can run into that problem, and using the flight character on rails just feels awkward and slow. It turns what should be a thrilling mechanic into something a lot more stressful than it needs to be. Then there's Final Fortress, one of the more spectacle-heavy stages in the game. It takes place at night, it's more combat-focused, and it throws in wall-jumping sections, rail grinding, and huge laser set pieces as you move toward the goal. It feels grand, it feels climactic, and in terms of scale, Sonic Heroes can still be genuinely impressive. Some of these levels are long, around 5 minutes or more, but early on that doesn't really feel out of place because the presentation and pacing help carry them. That's kind of the story of Sonic Heroes level design as a whole. The good is really good, the spectacle, music, visual identity, and creativity are all there, but the bad keeps dragging it down, especially once repetition kicks in across all 4 teams. A level that feels exciting the first time can feel exhausting by the 4th. The story in Sonic Heroes is simple, and honestly, I think that works in its favor. Dr. Eggman is back, everyone splits into their own teams, and each group has its own reason for going on this adventure. Team Sonic is trying to stop Eggman, Team Rose is searching for Sonic, Chocola, Froggy, and basically anything else Amy has decided matters that day. Team Dark is trying to figure out what Eggman is doing and what's going on with Shadow and Omega. And Team Chaotix, they just want to get paid. And weirdly enough, Team Chaotix and Team Dark probably have the most interesting setups. Chaotix brings in some humor and personality, while Team Dark has the mystery angle. Then of course you get the Neo-Metal Sonic twist, which gives the final story a little more punch. What I like about Sonic Heroes is that it doesn't try too hard to be deeper than it needs to be. It's goofy, light, and easy to follow. And honestly, Sonic stories often worked better when they weren't trying to sound overly serious or drown themselves in lore. Government conspiracies and darker themes can be cool in moderation, but Sonic as a franchise got pushed into some very weird directions after this. Heroes still feels like a point where the series could be dramatic without becoming completely tangled in itself. So no, the story isn't amazing, but it works. It fits the tone of the game, and I'd take this kind of simple, charming Sonic story over something bloated and self-important any day. The music in Sonic Heroes is good. Maybe not elite tier Sonic good across the board, but definitely good. It's catchy, energetic, and it fits the levels well. I wouldn't say every track is something I'd go out of my way to listen to while working on something, but the soundtrack absolutely does its job and never feels flat. Seaside Hill is one of the standout tracks for me. What I'm Made Of is also a huge one, and easily one of the most memorable songs in the whole game. The team themes are a fun idea too. Team Dark probably has the most memorable one overall, at least for me. Team Sonic's track is cheesy, sure, but that kind of cheesiness is part of the charm with Sonic. It works. So while I wouldn't call the Sonic Heroes soundtrack one of the all-time best in the franchise, it is definitely one of the game's strengths. So is Sonic Heroes an underrated classic? I'd say it's more like a heavily flawed game with great ideas. There's a lot to like here. The stages are colorful, the level concepts are creative, the team-based gameplay is a genuinely clever idea, and the game has a lot of personality. You can feel Sega experimenting, you can feel them trying to redefine Sonic in a way that still respects the series' core identity. But the flaws are impossible to ignore. The repetition across teams hurts the pacing badly. Physics can feel slippery and unreliable. The camera is weak and sometimes flat out broken, and once the novelty wears off, you start noticing just how much of the experience is fighting against itself. For me, Sonic Heroes lands at around a 5 out of 10. Not terrible, not amazing, just heavily flawed. It could have been much worse, but it also could have been much better. Sonic Heroes isn't perfect, but it represents a moment when Sega was still willing to experiment with Sonic's identity. And honestly, I'll take messy ambition over safe mediocrity any day. I give Sonic Team a lot of credit for the team-based gameplay idea. It was creative, it was different, it could have been something really special, but the repetition, physics issues, and weak camera keep it from becoming the great Sonic game it easily could have been. Sonic Heroes is one of those games where I completely understand why some people love it and why others can't stand it, and maybe that's why people still talk about it.